Good morning, children. Today we are doing third chapter of Civics, Democracy and Diversity. In today's lesson, you will learn politics of social divisions and three determinants of outcome of politics of social divisions. Let us start with the topic politics of social divisions. In the last class, we learned about similarities, differences and divisions. Similarities implies sharing common traits. Differences, not having common traits. And when differences overlap, it leads to division. Democracy is a very large institution and many diverse people are part of it. In the topic, we try to understand how do these social divisions affect politics. It affects in both the way negative and positive. Try to understand it with the example of Sri Lanka and Belgium. We have already done it in first lesson. In Sri Lanka, division led to disintegration of society. Sri Lankan society was divided into Tamil and Sinhalas based on the language. The distrust between the two communities turned into widespread conflicts. This conflict eventually turned into civil war, due to which there was heavy economic and material losses. On the other hand, Belgium was divided into French, Dutch and German communities based on the language, but the government recognized the existence of regional differences and cultural diversities. The government tried to address the grievances of each group and give equal representation to both French and Dutch. Apart from central and state government, a third kind of government called community government was introduced. This led to the increase in the social and political participation of the people. The Belgium model of accepting diversity led to positive outcomes in all spheres. Understand it with another example of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is part of United Kingdom and Republic of Ireland is an independent country. This region of the United Kingdom means Northern Ireland has been for many years the site of violent and bitter ethno-political conflicts. Its population is divided into two major sects of Christianity. 53% are Protestants while 44% are Roman Catholic. The Protestants were represented by Unionists who wanted to remain with the UK, which is predominantly Protestant. The Catholics were represented by nationalist parties who demanded that Northern Ireland be unified with the Republic of Ireland. Thousands of people were killed in the fight between the Unionists and Nationalists and between the security forces of the UK and the Nationalists. It was only in 1998 that the UK government and the Nationalists signed the peace treaty. One more example of Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, the story did not have happy ending. Political competition along religious and ethnic lines led to the disintegration of Yugoslavia into 6 independent countries. Such example lead some people to conclude that politics and social divisions must not be allowed to mix. At the same time, every expression of social division in politics does not lead to such disasters. Social division of one kind or another exists in most countries of the world. And wherever they exist, these divisions are reflected in politics. But division always do not lead to disintegration. Some factors are there which determine whether differences will lead to division and further disintegration or not. So now we will discuss the factors that determine the outcome of politics of social division. Three factors are crucial in deciding the outcome of politics of social division. How people perceive their identities, how the leaders raise the demand of community, and how the government reacts to the demand of social group. Let us take the example of an inter-house football game between the students which ends up as a draw due to the referee being distracted at the last minute. The students may end up in a fight if they identify themselves by their house. If they do not identify themselves by their house, then there is a possibility that no disagreement occurs. The house in charge, much like the political leaders, can end up calming their students down or end up in an argument with the other house in charges. And finally, the referee, who can decide how the incident is resolved in a way which calms the situation or take a path which leads to more inter-house rivalry. Now, look back the example again. Students have multiple identity like class, section, gender, activity club, house, etc. But at this moment, they perceive them as only house member. Now the house in charge, compare them with political party leaders. The house in charge can properly present her view or involve in a conflict with another house in charge. And finally, the referee, who acts like the government in our scenario and whether either able to convince both team or take biased decisions. Let us understand these factors in the context of democracy. First of all, the outcome depends on how people perceive their identities. If people see their identities in singular and exclusive terms, it becomes very difficult to accommodate. For example, as long as people in Northern Ireland saw themselves as only Catholic or Protestants, their differences were difficult to reconcile. It is much easier if people see that their identities are multiple and are complementary with the national identity. For example, a majority of Belgians feel that they are as much Belgian as they are Dutch or German speaking. This helps them to stay together. Second, it depends on how political leaders raise the demand of any community. It may be honest or may be biased. It is easier to accommodate demands that are within the constitutional framework and are not at the cost of another community. For example, in Yugoslavia, the leaders of different ethnic communities presented their demands in such a way that these could not be accommodated within a single country. Third, it depends on how the government reacts to demands of different groups, accommodative or authoritative. If the rulers are willing to share power and accommodate the reasonable demands of minority community, social divisions become less threatening for the country. But if they try to suppress such a demand in the name of national unity, the end result is often quite the opposite. Such attempts at forced integration often sow the seed of disintegration, as we saw in the examples of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Thus, the assertion of social diversities in a country need not be seen as a source of danger. Democracy could be strengthened with social diversities. However, history shows that democracy is the best way to fight for recognition and accommodation of diversity. Thank you and have a nice day. Stay blessed and listen to your parents.